I started at 16 years of age at Kangaroo Flat, which is in the Bendigo League, and progressed on to another side in the Bendigo League, Golden Square. Played in a couple of grand finals there, a couple of winning grand finals, and I had a couple of good games. From there I was picked up by Carlton, so I went down to Carlton for half a dozen games on match permit, and then returned back to Bendigo and finished off the season there. Eventually found my way down to Geelong after doing some pre-season with Carlton the following year in '77, and I didn't make the list at Carlton, so I got an opportunity down at Geelong, so I travelled down here and played in the reserves all the time down here. Didn't crack it for a senior game. I had a few injuries. I did my knee not long after I arrived, missed 7 or 8 games, and found it hard to break in. Had another pre-season, another full year with Geelong in the reserves again, and eventually found my way across to West, and that was in 1979, which was a big year for the flag, of course, and played off in the grand final, and unfortunately we didn't win it. So after West I went back to Bendigo. I got a transfer in my employment back to Bendigo. That's where I'd grown up. Got an opportunity to coach, and I coached Kangaroo Flat, and we won the premiership that year. It was my first year coaching. Won the first, the seconds and the thirds, and it was a really great year. Had some really good players, and it was a very enjoyable year. I think we only lost the one game for the year. And from there, it was a bit of a battle. I coached again for another couple of years, and then played as a player with Kangaroo Flat, and I switched across to South Bendigo in the same league. Had another 5 years there, and finished up in a grand final which we won, and I retired at the age of 35. So had 4 premierships in probably 17, 18 years of footy, and so you appreciate everyone. They're very hard to come by, and had a fairly successful career. Yeah, so at West, it's a fabulous time at West. Loved the team that we were playing with. Loved the style of footy with no wings. It was really fast and furious footy, very skillful. Lots of really, really good players around the club. Lots of good opposition players as well. I played a fair bit on half-forward flank and centre forward for a while. Had a fair bit of pace, so that was probably my main attribute, was the pace and ability to take a higher mark. So probably underachieved, if you like. I would have loved to have played in the premiership here at the club. Only had the 2 years. 79, which we lost the grand final, and 80, which we lost in the prelim final, and we had some great sides in both years, and really could have gone all the way. I finished up at centre half back with West in 1980. I had a really good year that year, and played some good games. I ended up winning the Past Players and Officials trophy. I think it's Mick Fry Memorial Award. So won that in 1980, so I was pleased with my year, even though we didn't get to the grand final. So the 79 year was a learning year for me. It was a new style of footy, new coach with Billy, and Billy's style was really just do as I say or else, and I think everybody respected Billy and gave him everything they had. We got to the grand final. Had lots of opportunities to win the game. I personally had a couple of opportunities in the last quarter, and I didn't take advantage of that. But I know that, you know, throughout a game of footy, lots of people have the opportunity, and you either take them or you don't. We just didn't on that day. It was a really fast and furious game. We had a dominating centre forward in Gunnar Scarlett, and seriously, he could have won the game for us, and he was taken out of the game, you know, by a guy that sort of bent the rules or broke the rules, and I was close to the incident, and really it just shouldn't have happened, and the guy should have been banned from playing footy for life. It was a very sad incident, and it really turned the game for us. We were looking good at that stage, and he took Scarlett out of the game. But that's footy, you know. You win some, you lose some, unfortunately, and but you do cherish them. As I said earlier, I had 4 premierships in my career, and that spanned almost 20 years, and they're hard to come by, and you really cherish them, and you celebrate the ones you win, and you meet up with guys you haven't met for 20 or 30 years, and they're still the same, you know. They're still great blokes, and that's what I enjoy out of footy. Yeah, so the 79 grand final loss still burns, and you know, I've copped a lot of flack over that over the years, but you know, that's par for the course. I would have loved to have won the game for the side, but I know that, you know, there are other opportunities throughout the game that were lost, but it still hurts, and but you've got to move on from that. And the 1980 year was fabulous under Warwick Yates. He was a terrific coach. He was a first-year coach. He was learning as he went, but you know, he got us through to a prelim final, and as I said, we could have got up and won that, and won the following week in the grand final, but that didn't happen either. And that's footy, you know. You win some and lose some, but it still hurts when you lose them. But fabulous players here, you know, Joe Radojevic, the Wells brothers. Yatesy himself was a great player. So, you know, Neil Gibson, he had a great year in 1980, I remember. And just goes on and on. Really, really good players. And most of them had played a little bit of league footy. And the opposition in the VFA at that time always had, you know, 6 or 7 ex-league players in their sides. So it was really great competition. So yeah, I moved on after footy. I played for nearly 20 years, lost interest in it, and you know, the rule changes and the softening of the game, you sort of lose interest. My eldest son actually got me back involved. He was a fitness coach at Adelaide Footy Club for 4 years, and then he came over to Geelong, and he was an assistant coach and fitness coach at Geelong for another 4 years. So that got me interested back in footy, and went along to quite a number of games. And you do appreciate the skill of the players these days. It's very, very quick. I wouldn't think it's as tough as it used to be, although, you know, they hit pretty hard still. But I think the rule changes have changed the game, and it's not quite as good as it used to be. But I guess that's a sign of age, isn't it? We're always better than what it is these days. So the reason I left West was to go back to my hometown of Bendigo, and I got a coaching opportunity there. So other than that, I'd still be at the club. I loved the club here. It was fantastic. In the start of '81, actually, after I'd finished at West, Billy went to Geelong and was coaching. He got me down for a practice game with Geelong, and that built my hopes up again. I sort of thought that I could still make it at league footy, and I did my ankle in the first 2 minutes of the game, and so that ruined that hope again, and so I moved on and settled back into life in the country. So the 1980 end of season footy trip was over to Bali. I think we were scheduled to go for about 8 or 10 days, and it was a pretty interesting trip. Yatesy got crook in the first 24 hours and was dying, he thought, and we had to get a doctor for him, and we ended up tracking down Albert Batty at the time, and he was, I think, the major sponsor of the club, and he was staying on the posh side of town, and so we all tripped across to his hotel room and took it over, and we were booking everything up to his hotel tab, you know, drinks and food and whatever, and I think we ended up staying there, the whole team, stayed in the one room, so we're all coming and going. And at the end of that trip, there was an airline strike, and we were all broke by that time, and we just wanted to get back to Australia, and we couldn't. We were delayed for a couple of days at least, and the only way we could get back was to switch flights via Perth. So we jumped on a plane back to Perth, and we had an extra 2 or 3 days in Perth as well. But as I said, we were broke, and not many of us had credit cards in those days. It's a fair while ago. So we kept hanging around Albert Batty because he had a few dollars in his pocket and he was looking after us. So it was a pretty good trip. We enjoyed it. We weren't very popular with the wives and girlfriends when we got back because there was no telecommunications at that time either, so they didn't have a clue where we were. So it was pretty interesting.
You've given your heart to get here and your soul to get it right. You can take 'em boots and all, but it's sure gonna take a fight. When you spend all week getting to your peak, you're gonna have your say. You bet. On Sunday, it's the Bftp.